All right, what's up, guys? Chocosura here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the latest mod I just finished, which is Final Fantasy Tactics Zodiac Brave Story, created by Batfrog. This mod, as a whole, I feel has been very well done. A lot of things I liked about it. There were a few things that made me scratch my head, but I'll get into all that later on in the review. But as a whole, I did have a good time with this mod. Um, I feel as though it has accomplished its goal, and I will get into that later on as well. But basically, I'm going to be taking a look at this mod, which is relatively new. I believe it was released back in late 2025. Um, so it's not that old, and maybe it's not well known, but it is a new mod. It's still being worked on. I believe it's done actually, but there could be some updates to it. I'm not sure. But basically, this is a full gameplay overhaul. I wouldn't say full, but it's mostly a gameplay overhaul of FFT, featuring reworked jobs and abilities and items and systems, along with several quality of life improvements. So those I will be talking about as well. Um, I did spend some time to write down a lot of notes before preparing this review, so I'm kind of I'm not reading fully from my notes. But I'm trying to just skim through my notes and see what I want to touch upon. But most of my notes are in this in these slides that I'm going to show in a few minutes. But yeah, I'm just gonna say what I have to say about this mod, and that'll be that. But don't worry, it's mostly positive things. So before diving into the individual jobs and builds and all that good stuff, I want to step back and give a high level overview of what this mod is trying to do, what it changes, and how it feels to actually play. Yeah, so FFT is one of those games, a lot of folks come back to. It has high replayability. It has one of the most active modding communities. There's a lot of mods of this game, of this version, the War of the Lions version as well. And over the years, we've seen countless rebalances and overhauls and reinterpretations of the original game. And this is one of them. All right, so we are going to go ahead and look at our overview, so you guys will have some kind of idea what I'm going to be talking about. What kind of mod this is, I will touch upon that first thing, and then I'm going to be talking about what the goal of this mod is. In my opinion, what goal is this mod trying to accomplish? I'll talk about reworked equipment and items briefly. I will also touch upon the precious item system, which is unique to this mod. I haven't seen this in any other mod, so I'll get into that later on. This mod also has 4 new jobs. I will explain each one individually, how good they are. I will also touch upon the other job class changes, similarities and differences from the vanilla game. Other quality of life features I will also mention, as well as what I liked and didn't like about the mod. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. All right, first of all, what kind of mod is this? So, in my opinion, this is basically a gameplay rebalance of the original FFT. It is definitely not a difficulty hack. It is more of a casual, in my opinion, it's more of a casual mod for casuals. I mean, it can be for veterans too, but I feel it's more for casual stuff. But like I said, it's not a difficulty hack, so don't go into this thinking, oh, this is a difficulty hack, because it's certainly not. It's not a total conversion. It keeps the original story, keeps the original maps, It keeps the original structure intact. So there's no like custom characters or custom maps or anything like that. None of that is in this mod. Instead, I feel the focus is on reworking jobs, reworking abilities, items, and core mechanics. So you play through this mod, it is gonna feel similar to original FFT, but there are some differences. There are many differences actually. So, and I'll get into that later on as well. But yeah, once you start engaging with the mechanics, it becomes clear that nearly everything has been adjusted in some way, and you will see that almost right away from the start of this mod. The goal of this mod, I feel, is, well, let's just say at its core, Zodiac Brave Story is trying to solve a long-standing issue with vanilla FFT. That's one of the main things I feel. In the original, a small number of jobs and abilities dominate the meta, as we all know, those of us who played vanilla FFT, while many others feel niche and underpowered or just simply not worth using. The mod aims to make every job feel powerful, relevant without leaning on extreme gimmicks or one-size-fits-all strategies. I also feel that it encourages experimentation by giving the player more viable tools, smoothing out difficulty spikes, and ensuring that jobs stay useful well into the late game. And for the most part, the mod accomplishes that goal quite nicely. A big part of this goal is also reducing frustration. I feel removing or reworking mechanics that punish the player without adding any sort of meaningful challenge. So I feel as though this mod has accomplished those goals quite nicely. All right, so let's move on to reworked equipment and items is a part of this mod as well. Another major focus of this mod is making the items and equipment matter throughout the entire game. So in vanilla, many consumables, they tend to fall off. Equipment often has a very clear best option of what to use. But this mod tries to rework items like potions, ethers, elixirs, stuff like that, so they scale alongside increasing HP and MP values, and I like this decision. I will get into that in more detail once I cover Chemist, because Chemist I have a lot to say about. So I'll get more into that once we get to that part of the video. But status effects are also more relevant. Now there is a change as far as status effects, which I find interesting, and that is status effects are all temporary. There are no permanent status effects like Petrify, Frog, Zombie. All of those permanent status effects are now temporary, so they will run out eventually. And I feel that is one of the changes that sort of forces the player to consider, especially when running units like oracles or time mages. Pretty much any unit that has access to status, they need to keep that in the back of their mind, that status effects are not permanent. None of them are. And I feel as though that is a really nice change. Instead of defaulting to the same gear every time, you're encouraged to make meaningful trade-offs based on your party and strategy. So there is no, one setup fits all. You're actively encouraged to try different gear, try different setups. There's a lot of new like reaction abilities and support abilities, which will attempt to make you play the game differently from vanilla, and that is a change I like as well. All right, moving on. We have the precious item system, which is, it's an interesting system because it's basically saying that your items can't be stolen. That's what precious items are in this mod. Your items can't be stolen. In game, they have a little star next to the item, and that'll immediately let you know, oh, hey, this is a precious item. Um, Precious items are powerful pieces of equipment that cannot be stolen, and this pairs with another major change, which is equipment breaking has been removed. So there is no weapon break, shield break, head break. All of that mess is gone. And I'll get more into that when I cover Night, but all of that is gone. Most precious items appear in the late game, especially in the deep dungeon. Those of you who saw my playthrough should know what I'm talking about. Though there are other ways to obtain them. Now, I do want to say this though. I'm not sure. It's not clear if these items were intended to be strictly limited. But regardless, this system removes a major source of frustration. But yeah, I'm not sure if they're limited, or if they're intended to be limited, because there are ways to gain more precious items. But the big thing about this system is you no longer need to worry about losing rare gear, and that is a plus. You're free to focus on strategy and focus on your battles instead. So you don't have to worry about, enemy knights breaking your gear, or you don't have to worry about after you poach something really rare and you get like a ribbon or a Chocosura, beret or something like that. You don't have to worry about enemy thieves stealing your stuff. If they're precious. Only ribbons are precious, actually. Beret and Chocosura is like a bad example. But ribbons, for example, are precious. You don't have to worry about ribbons getting stolen because they can't be stolen. Alright, next we are going to get into some of the good stuff. The 4 new jobs. How good are these 4 new jobs? Well, first of all, let me tell you what these 4 jobs are. They are the Assassin, the Dark Knight, the Bard, I'm sorry, not Bard, I'm dumb, the Hero, which replaces Bard, and the Battle Singer. So Assassin, Dark Knight, Hero, Battle Singer. Those are the 4 new jobs that this mod introduces. The Assassin replaces the Mediators, so Mediators are gone, all their skill set is gone. Dark Knight replaces the Calculators, so no math skill present in this mod anywhere at all. Those of you who like your math skill strats, this ain't the mod for you. Hero replaces the Bard, so no songs. Well, I can't say no songs because there's Battle Singers, so there's no traditional vanilla songs. Let's just put it that way. And the Battle Singer replaces the Dancer. I feel as though these jobs are built around clear identities and active playstyles. Each job has a different sort of playstyle. Heroes, Dark Knights, Assassin, for example, they want to get up into the fray. They want to use their skills on the enemies. Hero, for example, they basically want to walk up and just hit things. Battle Singer, on the other hand, they can get into the fray, although they can also stay back and support. And I'll get into that in a minute. These classes are strong, they're flexible, they're well integrated. But how good are they though? That really depends on how you use them. That depends on how you build them. Depends on what you're trying to do with them. So instead of judging them in this way, I will take a closer look at each one individually. And I want to start off with the Assassin. Now, Assassin is a unique class. Their command is called Cruel Methods. They're basically a burst DPS slash status infliction and control type of class. So think you want to walk up to the front, you want to burst somebody down, or you can just go around and inflict status effects. That's pretty much what this class does. You also need level 3 Thief to unlock this class. And speaking of job requirements, they are really, really good in this mod. Really good. You don't need a lot of time grinding to get these jobs. Like Assassin, all you need to unlock Assassin is to raise a Thief to level 3. That's it. So maybe you could unlock Assassin like maybe late chapter 1, early chapter 2 perhaps. Like I said, they're not that hard to unlock. Key points of Assassins: they can use only daggers and crossbows, and they are heavy damage dealers at the cost of MP. Assassin MP pools are not high, so keep that in mind. They are quite low, and you will find yourself running out of MP on Assassin a lot. They specialize in inflicting status effects on enemies like poison, darkness, silence, don't move, stuff like that. Things that can cripple your enemy and control the battlefield. They can disable key enemy units like mages. If they're charging on you, you can have an assassin run up there and just get next to her and either kill her or just flat out silence her. And they need to be up close to use most of their skill set. Now, keep in mind, assassins can use crossbows as well. However, the majority of their skill set is 1 range in the case of the silence skill and the stop skill, and 3 range in the case of the blind skill and their don't move skill. So they need to be rather close in order to do their thing. Or you can just play them like a nuke unit and just spam Envenom or use Sinister Strike, and just pop things with a crossbow. Alright, so skill specific points about the assassin. They have innate toxicology. Toxicology is basically I deal poison alongside my normal attacks. That's basically what toxicology is. So whenever the assassin attacks a unit, it will poison it in the process. The poison, while poison's kind of meant as a status, it can kill if the HP is low enough. So good on like high HP units like knights and lancers and stuff like that. Assassins can stack poison status on top of normal attacks, as I just mentioned. Can also be used as a support for other classes, but not really practical. Toxicology, it's a fun ability, but I wouldn't use it as a support ability on another class. It's just not worth it, because to be honest with you, if you want to run toxicology, just run assassin. Just play assassin. They have it built in. And then you can free up that support slot for, you know, something else like concentrate or half of MP or something like that. Toxicology on its own as a support ability is terrible. But like I said, if you want toxicology, just play assassin and you get it automatically and you don't have to worry about it. Assassin has a low MP pool in general, but has innate move MP up to sustain some MP over time. The DPS skills require a lot of MP. So Sinister Strike, which is their most powerful skill, is 30 MP, which is a lot for Assassin. Especially early on. Like I said, Assassin does not have a high MP pool. And I think their MP growth is not all that great either. But that I don't know. So they could be, but it's still low at the end of the day. It's even worse because I do believe Assassin cannot use robes, so getting more MP on Assassin is kind of difficult unless you wear specifics like Wizard Hat. what's the one? Is it it's not Shadow Garb? Is it Mental Shirt or something like that? Gives some MP, but they don't have many options to increase their max MP. So with that said, I feel Assassin skill set is kind of better off on other classes, maybe thieves or ninjas perhaps. But there are ways to get around the MP problem. You can run like half of MP or something, so you could do that. Envenom and Sinister Strike, which are the DPS moves. Envenom causes poison. Sinister Strike causes instant death. They hit extremely hard. If they hit, they are subject to evasion. Poison and instant death, as I just said. So, speed setups can make interrupting spellcasters easier with barbed wire or sneak attack. Barbed wire is their silence move. Sneak attack is their stop move. Now, what I mean by that is if you run assassin with, say, motivation, which is basically speed save, or you run a speed, you run all speed plus gear, and you're in a battle, and then you have something, enemy unit charge something on you, you can just have your assassin run up there and just silence them, or stop them, or just flat out kill them, interrupt them, mid-charge them pretty much. They are pretty good at mid-charging units. Vanish is basically sunken state, but better, more annoying to deal with on enemy units. And you can get a good example of this in the deep dungeon. If you saw my deep dungeon run, there were some Vanish units down there, and I think the floor was it Terminate? Where I ran into a female ninja that had Vanish. So Vanish, like I said, it's a lot like Sunken State, except that Vanish says you can't target me, period. Except for certain spells and abilities, you can target them, but if you try to, they will say 0%. And it forces you to wait until their next action before you can actually target them with anything. So Vanish is, honestly, I feel Vanish is more useful for the enemies than your team, but I mean, you can use it on your characters, yeah, but I feel as though it's more useful on enemies. It's more annoying if enemies have Vanish. Assassin is the first unit that has access to a move plus skill, so if you want move plus 1, you need to unlock Assassin. So move plus 1 is on Assassin. Female units are better assassins late game due to access to bags, Envenom or Sinister Strike with either H bag or FS bag if you can get hold of one. Equip does much more damage than any of the best daggers or crossbows. So the best dagger, I believe, is 15 weapon power. You can only get it in deep dungeon, and the best crossbow, which is a stinger, has a weapon power of 12. Now, those aren't bad to use with Envenom and Sinister Strike. Not bad at all. I think you're looking at maybe like 300-ish damage. The knife may get you about 400. Something like that. But if you play an assassin and you stick an FS bag on her, which has 20 weapon power, then all of a sudden your Sinister Strikes are going to be doing like 500 damage. No joke. And Venom is easily in the 400s late game, which makes this setup very deadly for enemies because you can practically one-shot or two-shot anything, assuming those skills hit. So those are options that you can use for assassins. I feel as though assassin it's a fun class. It's just you have to think on what to use, when to use it, and how to use it. So assassin gives you plenty of options as to what you want to do to control whatever situation you're in. All right, moving on to the Dark Knight. Dark Knight is a really fun class, I felt. Their command is Dark Sword. Their role is strictly DPS. They are a DPS machine. Unlocking requirements are kind of steep, but it'll be worth it in the end. So you need a level 5 knight as well as a level 5 wizard to unlock Dark Knight. And like I said, that's kind of steep, but the abilities that Dark Knight has makes it worth it. And I'll get into that in just a moment. Alright, so the key points. Dark Knight replaces calculators, so calculators are not in the mod at all. Sword skills, they scale off of both PA and MA, and they're counted as magic damage, so you can use stuff like magic attack up with it to strengthen it. Dark Knights have very strong self-sustain with good damage mitigation options, and I'll get into that in just a moment. And they can snowball quickly thanks to Reaper. Now, I want to talk about Reaper, and I'm going to read this next line. Innate Reaper. Dark Knights have Innate Reaper. Reaper basically gives you +3 PA and +3 MA every time you get a kill. And I do believe this is Brave based, because sometimes, and I'm sure you guys may have saw during the playthrough toward the end, that sometimes my Reaper will just not trigger. So I'm thinking either it's a set chance to trigger or it runs off of Brave. I have a feeling it's the latter. I have a feeling it's the latter because I remember I had to raise like Reese's Brave a bit, and I remember her Reaper triggering more often. So I'm thinking it's based on Brave, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But anywho, Reaper is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful support ability in the entire mod. Reaper is great for Dark Knight itself, but really excels on most other classes except ninjas. Now, Reaper is one of those support abilities that can be just flat out broken on certain units. Every time you get a kill, you get +3 PA and +3 MA. So you can run this on practically any class and get some use out of it. The only class you really don't want to run this on is probably ninjas, and I'll explain why later on. But ninjas do not want Reaper. Anything else though can make some use out of Reaper, whether it be a physical job class like a knight or a monk or a lancer or whatever. Mages can make use of this too. Summoners, wizards, time mages, I mean geomancers, any class, any of those classes that have skill sets that rely on MA or MA based skill sets or PA based skill sets, or both in the case of Geomancer, can make use of Reaper. And it allows that unit to just snowball out of control. The best user of Reaper, I feel, is probably Reese in her base class, because Reese's base class is just insane. The stat growths are good. I think the stat growths are probably better than they are in vanilla. I don't know, but let's say you run something like an elemental build on Reese with Reaper, and you guys know what I'm talking about if you've seen my Reese in Deep Dungeon. We're talking like 300 plus damage elemental, and that's without any procs from Reaper. It just gets higher from there. So Reaper is actually insane. Soulbind is basically a nerfed damage split. Split damage was nerfed to 1/4 of the received damage. So yeah, Soulbind is a weaker version of damage split. Damage split in vanilla, basically you take half of the damage is split in half. You get healed for half of that amount, and then the enemy takes half that damage back. On this mod, it's 25%. So you take 100 damage and you shift 25 damage back. That's how it works. Magic Barrier is basically MP switch. MP MP absorbs any damage taken down to 0, and then HP takes the rest. So this is basically a nerf to MP Switch. MP Switch is one of those broken abilities in vanilla. If you have some sort of MP restoration to go along with it, like the old classic move MP up and move MP up and MP Switch combo. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't really do that in this, or you can, but it's a lot weaker because the MP isn't going to take 100% of the damage. The MP is only going to absorb the amount of maximum MP that you have in damage, and then the rest of it goes to your HP. So, for example, if you have 200 MP and 500 HP, and you take an attack that does 300 damage, 200 of that damage goes right to your MP, and your MP gets depleted, and the other 100 damage goes to your HP. So you end up taking 100 damage. That's how it works. It's still a decent source of damage mitigation. It's just weaker. It's still okay though. All abilities are Dark Elemental. They can strengthen these abilities by equipping elemental boosting gears such as Black Robe or Spirit Gems. If equipped with Black Robe or Spirit Gems, Black Magic Secondary is actually very strong on Dark Knight. And I truly believe that is the case because, again, you have Reaper. You know, you have innate Reaper, so any kill they get plus 3 PA and MA, which just boosts their skills. And on top of that, you wear something like Black Robe, which Black Robe in this mod not only strengthens Fire, Ice, and Lightning, it also strengthens Darkness, which is a very good piece of armor for Dark Knights. Or you can use Spirit Gems. You know, Spirit Gems is basically the 108 gems. It strengthens everything, every elemental. So either one of those will strengthen the Dark Knight abilities. In addition to Reaper, that makes them very scary. They can also sustain their own MP using Witcher Blade. I forgot to write that there, but that's fine. With the Innate Reaper, they can run stuff like Short Charge or Charisma or Magic Attack Up or whatever you want to run on them. Dark Knight skill set allows them to easily self-sustain during a long battle, so they don't need to be monitored as much as other classes. So yeah, if you build your Dark Knight correctly, then you really don't need to worry about them. Like a standard Dark Knight setup is probably something like Black Magic or Valor, Concentrate, Charisma. If you're using Black Magic, maybe Short Charge or Magic Attack Up, and maybe like Teleport or Move +1, Move +2, something like that. You get a couple of kills, and then you're off to the races. Dark Knight, even if you just spam Night Sword, they can sustain any damage they take. They also have things like, you know, Soulbind and Magic Barrier, which I just finished talking about, to further mitigate damage. So you don't really need to keep tabs of them. They can take care of themselves pretty much. The only issue is if you're fighting things that absorb darkness, then that kind of walls them. So you kind of want to have a secondary that's able to get around that sort of situation. Like Black Magic, for example, is good. Valor is good. Battle Skill is good. They have some very powerful secondary options available to them. So yeah, Dark Knight as a whole, very strong class. Very strong class. And they possess one of the strongest, if not the strongest, support ability in the game. And I feel as though it is worth building a Knight to level 5 and a Wizard to level 5 just to unlock this class, if not only to get that Reaper ability. Alright, next up we have the hero. Another one of the new classes presented in this mod, their command is called Valor. I just mentioned Valor a minute ago. This is the skill set I'm talking about. Their role is basically a DPS, just like Dark Knights. However, they do have I'm not going to say a secondary role. It's more like a niche role, but they can do it. They can play healer with the sacrifice skill. And if you run something like, I don't know, like Regenerator or Defense Armlet or something. I'm sorry, not Defense Armlet, but Stim Pack. I'll get into Stim Pack later on. But any sort of regeneration ability coupled with like move HP up or something, then they can play as a pseudo healer with sacrifice. So the main thing you want to do with hero is just run up to the front line and just hit stuff. That's it. Unlocking requirements is not too bad actually. Level 2 shaman, level 2 samurai, and level 2 ninja. So you need all three of those at level 2 to unlock hero. Like I said, not too difficult to get. You may, on a casual playthrough, you'll probably unlock hero in like chapter 2, maybe mid chapter 2, depending on how diligent you are in unlocking shaman and samurai and ninja. Key points: only male units can unlock this class, so you cannot have female heroes on this mod. Only males can be heroes. This replaces the bard. They deal massive damage at the cost of recoil damage. They can also heal an ally in a pinch, as I just finished explaining. They can be healers if you really need them to. And they can double their damage when they're critical. They have innate intrepid, and I'll get into that right now. Innate intrepid. Intrepid says when in critical, damage and healing are double. Can be extremely powerful, but risky to use due to critical state required. One of the best users of re-raise and is even better with a chemist support. So imagine you have a hero, you send him up to the front lines and you start spamming stuff like what's that move called? Heroic Strike. Yeah, Heroic Strike. Very strong ability. However, you take damage when you use it too. You take a percentage of damage. You use that move a couple of times, and next thing you know, your hero is at low HP. Now, when that hero gets into critical, all of a sudden, that hero is going to be dealing double damage. So heroes. So you can imagine something like a berserker class. This is like the closest thing to a berserker class. You just want to run up to the front lines and you want to hit stuff. That's what the hero wants to do. Run up there, get up close, and smack stuff. That's it. Righteous Fury adds haste and +2 PA, but adds berserk. Not really useful, as there are better ways to add haste and increase PA. Righteous Fury, I feel, is not a good skill. For one thing, Berserk in FFT is very screwy. The AI is very screwy with Berserk. And it can do things that you don't want them to do. So, Berserk is just bad in general. Haste is nice, but there's better ways of adding it. You have, the haste spell. You have Stim Pack. You have items late game. There's weapons late game to add auto haste. So there's plenty of ways to get haste. And +2 PA. I mean, +2 PA is nice, but there's other ways to add PA. So I feel as though Righteous Fury is not that great of a skill. It's fun on paper, but it's got Berserk taxed onto it. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Berserk. Can lower target's brave with challenge, which is another option for chapter 4 Elm Door if necessary. So if you're in chapter 4 and you don't get Beowulf, you don't have access to chicken, if you don't somehow have an oracle by that point, you don't have access to, what's that skill called, trepidation, which is Foxbird, or you don't have Battle Singer unlocked, and I'll get into that next, then Challenge is your next option to lower Brave. That's all it does. You do need to be within one range to use this skill, I believe. So you have to be up close. Hero wants to be up close anyway, so I don't think that's a problem. Heroic Strike and Vengeful Strike deal extreme amounts of damage. They take recoil damage after the former. Yeah, like I just finished saying, Heroic Strike is very, very strong. However, you will take recoil damage after using it. So you use it a couple of times. You kind of have to... Hero kind of wants you to watch his HP. Because if you let his HP get too low, he'll get to critical. And while, yeah, he does double damage in critical, at the end of the day, it's still critical. It's still critical. So you're in danger of dying. And late game, it's kind of bad. So you gotta be careful with that. But like I said earlier, they are one of the best users of re-raise. So yeah, so maybe it's not all that bad. Sacrifice basically is the Squire's Wish ability, but with Protect and Shell thrown in. Good to use for a niche strat if you equip a source of constant regen and or move HP up. Yeah, this is what I was explaining earlier, where Hero has kind of like a setup where you can do Stim Pack plus move HP up, for example, which is auto regen and move HP up, and you spam Sacrifice on everything and heal. So they can do that. Is it the best use of heroes? Probably not, but they have that option. They also, and I forgot to put it here, they also have a ability called Titanic Strike, which is earth damage, and it hits in a cone pretty strong as well. Luck is their support ability, gives the hero a greater chance to critically strike. So luck is interesting because it does take up your support slot, which means you can't use stuff like concentrate, and hero really likes concentrate. Like I said earlier, hero wants to hit things. So concentrate is very strong on hero. But if you want to just go balls to the wall and ooga booga up to the front line and just hit stuff, then luck is a pretty nice ability to have. It basically helps you kill things faster. That's all it does. They also have other neat skills like Fury, which is PA save, Revenge, which is basically counter but it auto crits, and Fearless, which gives you chicken and death sentence immunity. Fearless is interesting because if you have a low Brave unit and they end up getting their Brave lowered under 10, they will turn into a chicken. But Fearless says, I have chicken immunity, so that unit will not turn into a chicken. But you do have to be careful with this, because if you lower a unit's Brave under 6, or under 7 I should say, if you lower a unit's Brave under 7, then you lose that unit permanently. They're gone. So you do have to watch out for that. But yeah, Fearless is decent for having chicken immunity, death sentence immunity, and Fury's PA save. PA save is what it is in vanilla, same thing. Revenge is a stronger version of counter. So the hero's got a lot of tools they can play with as far as dealing damage. Nice class. Alright, moving on to the fourth and final of the new classes of this mod. We have the Battle Singer. Now, Battle Singers are really interesting units. Their command is called Battle Song, just like the Bard skill, Battle Song. Their roles is basically support, Brave manipulation, and control. However, they can, get into the front lines and deal damage too. They're not as strong as heroes, but they have that option. In order to unlock Battle Singer, you need to have a level 2 Shaman as well as a level 2 Summoner. So again, just like Hero, not too bad to unlock Battle Singers. You can probably, if you're playing through this mod casually, you will probably unlock Battle Singers sometime in Chapter 2. Like I said, they're not that difficult to unlock. Battle Singers, just like Heroes, are also locked by gender. Heroes are male only. Battle Singers, on the other hand, are female only. So that means you can only run this class if you are female. This class replaces the Dancer. They can be used for AoE haste and protect. You don't have something like Hestega or Protecta. Offers the only other option to manipulate allies brave other than Squire. And they have the same support and reaction abilities as the hero. Offers chicken and death sentence immunity. I forgot to write DS right there, but that's okay. It's the same thing. Alright, so Battle Singer has one ability which is, I'm not going to say it's busted, but it's very good. That ability is called Charisma, and I'll get into that right now. Charisma, they have this innate, by the way. So Charisma says targets are considered as good compatibility regardless if they are allies or foes. So if you slap Charisma on your support slot, you're basically hitting that target with good compat. That's basically what it means. This applies to damage skills, this applies to statuses, this applies to healing, this applies to everything. It treats that target as if they have good compat. So there's no wondering, oh, I have bad compat, I have worse compat with this target. Just that Charisma on, you don't have to worry about that at all. They have good compat. Battle Singers do have some unique abilities, which I will get into right now, starting with Heroic Song. Adds haste and protect on allies, great as a battle opener if the Battle Singer gets first turn. Now, Battle Singers aren't the fastest units around, but if you can manage to set up your party so that the Battle Singer gets the first turn, and then use Heroic Song, then all of a sudden your entire team gets hasted and protected at the start of the fight. So it's another option other than, let's say, Hastega, to haste up your team at the start of a fight. Very strong option. Brave Song gives you +5 Brave and it's AoE. And Sad Song, which is -20 Brave, also AoE. Brave Song may not be as useful by the time this class is unlocked. Sad Song, on the other hand, could be useful on Chapter 4 Elmdor if you're trying to steal the stuff and you don't have Beowulf's Chicken or you don't have Trepidation. So basically, this is an equivalent. I can't say an equivalent. It's similar to the Hero's Challenge skill. Hero's Challenge skill is one target. Sad Song is AoE. Now, there is a pretty funny use of this skill in where if everything around that Battle Singer has low Brave, if their Brave is low enough, like say under 30, then you can use Sad Song to literally turn them all into chickens. It's so funny. I know I didn't do it in the playthrough because it's a little bit annoying to set up, but I actually did it when I was grinding. And it's actually really funny. So you can potentially turn an entire enemy team into chickens. It's hilarious. It's one of the niche uses that she can do. Brave Song, on the other hand, is honestly, it's kind of outclassed. It's basically a cheer up in an AoE range. That's really all it is. By the time you have unlocked Battle Singer, then not Heroic Song, I'm sorry, Brave Song rather, is not really that useful. Freedom Song is one of the only ways to remove Stop, and this is important because Stop is kind of present in the mod frequently. There are a lot of units that can inflict Stop on your characters, so And this is the only way to remove it, I believe. It also removes Don't Move and Don't Act, I believe, too. So definitely take that into consideration. Freedom Song is the only way to remove Stop. Legendary Song is basically +1 PA to all in its range. Not really that useful, as there are better ways to increase PA. So Legendary Song is basically Accumulate. If you're familiar with that skill from Vanilla, Accumulate for anything that's within range. So I think these songs are like 3 range around the Battle Singer. I think it's 3 range or 4 range, something like that. But it adds +1 PA to everything in range. So it's kind of like a battle song from Vanilla. Not the skill set. I'm talking about battle song, the actual bard song, which gives you +1 PA. It's a lot like that. Siren Song, which is an AoE charm to all males in range, which also works on monsters. And Medusa Song, which is an AoE stop, are very strong abilities if the enemy units clump up and the battle singer can get in range. Teleport is very good on her. Yeah, so Medusa Song I found myself using quite a bit because AoE stop is extremely strong. If the enemy team, as I just finished mentioning, if the enemy team is clumped up in any sort of way and the battle singer can get in there and sing this song, then all of those units will be stopped. They're all going to be stopped. So she can control a battlefield if the battlefield works out to her favor. Siren Song is basically an AoE charm. Now, Siren Song you have to be more careful with because this ability does not work on females, but it only works on male units, and it works on, more importantly, it works on monsters. So again, if those enemy units start clumping up, then if you can get your battle singer in the middle of that, or get her in range of all those monsters and get that song off, they will be statused. Last but not least, Call Odin is very harsh on battle singers MP pool because they cannot wear robes. Best to use on other classes that have robes access and can survive on the front lines. So yeah, battle singer, that's the one drawback to battle singer, is the fact that they have a low-ish MP pool. Not as low as assassin, but it's low enough. And what's worse is they cannot use robes. They're restricted to heavy armor and light armor, I believe. I don't even think they can wear light armor. They might be able to wear light armor. I have to check. But I know they can wear heavy armor. And as far as helmets, they can wear knight helmets. And they can also wear stuff like Wizard Hat. So Wizard Hat is pretty much her only way to boost her MP. So Call Odin, by the way, is basically the Odin summon. That's what it is. And it's 70 MP to cast. So that's why I say it's very harsh on her MP pool. And honestly, if I want to be real here, you don't want to be using Battle Singer to summon Odin. Battle Singer MA is not that great. It takes up a ton of her MP. If you want to summon Odin, just play a damn summoner. Seriously, just play a summoner. Call Odin is not worth it. Not worth it at all. Alright, so those are the 4 new job classes. I found them very fun. I found all 4 of them very fun. Battle Singer especially. I absolutely love Battle Singer. Charisma is great. Sad Song, I'm sorry, Medusa Song rather. Medusa Song, Siren Song is great. Heroic Song is great. I've used Battle Singer several times on my playthrough. Heroes are also extremely strong. Very strong unit to have. They're basically much better knights. You just have to watch their HP so you don't get them killed accidentally. Dark Knights, as I said earlier, also a very strong class, one of my favorites. Self-sustain is just insane. They get access to Reaper, which you can use on other job classes, and it's just, I mean, once you get Reaper, it's just, you know, it's a wrap. It really is. And then Assassin is also a fun class. You just have to work around their low MP pool. I feel as though Assassin, as I said earlier, Assassin's skill set is probably better on some other class that has more MP or more MP to work with. Like Thieves, for example. Thieves make great Assassins because Thieves are naturally fast. They have, they don't have better MP, but yeah, I mean, they're just faster in general. So Assassin skill set is trickier to work with, but you can work with it. But all in all, these 4 job classes I enjoyed at various points through the playthrough. Alright, so speaking of classes, I want to touch upon the other job classes which did have some job changes. Every existing class has been adjusted in some way or another. Most of them, they retain their original role, but their abilities have been rebalanced, they've been renamed, or moved to other classes. There's quite a bit of new support abilities, new reaction abilities. These abilities, they can play a bigger role in defining builds. Players also can get access to powerful tools earlier than vanilla, and I'll explain that in detail in a minute, which really changes how the early game plays out. Now, early game is a lot easier. So overall, I feel as though far fewer jobs or abilities feel like dead ends. Alright, so let's get into it. Starting off with the Squire. Now, you may think, oh, Squire's a Squire, they don't do anything. Oh, sure they do. Sure they do. Squire, of course, basic skill, same as vanilla. The roles, DPS support, brave manipulation. No unlocking requirements, obviously, because you start with them. Squire gets access to counter instead of counter tackle. I feel that's a good change because counter tackle is trash. Counter is better in every way. They can start increasing units brave right from the start to enable higher success rate of reaction abilities. They do have a skill called Embolden, which I'll get into in just a second. Basic skill allows for easy JP farming via Embolden, not only for Squire but for other classes as well. So yeah, you really just want to use Embolden to farm JP early on, because and that's another thing I liked about this mod, is that every job class has innate gain JP up, innate move find item, and what's the other one? I think that's it. Just JP, move find item. I'm missing one. I'm sure I'll remember. I'm missing one though. But yeah, Embolden raises brave on self or allies. It's a +5 brave boost. Can be used to reach max brave early and quickly. So this is where it really starts. And as I mentioned earlier, this makes the early game easier because reaction abilities, of course, you're going to learn them. You're going to want to learn them. Some reaction abilities you get earlier than others, as I will mention later on. And once you start raising your brave right from the jump, then you're going to have an easier early game. Counter, as I just finished explaining, same as vanilla, triggers counter attack on physical damage. Early base stacking combined with early accessible reactions. I just finished explaining that. Remember, this job is the starting point to becoming a fine warrior. And that statement couldn't be more true. So yeah, Squire definitely has its purpose. Alright, moving on to the Chemist. Now, Chemist has been changed immensely in this mod. Um, Item command, of course, just like vanilla. Their role, support, just like vanilla. Support, healing, and battlefield control. I should have put down, um, instead of just battlefield control, I probably should have just put down RNG battlefield control, and I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, chemists are insanely good in this mod. Insanely good. And I'll tell you why. First of all, their job requirements, of course, it's level 2 Squire. So once you get a Squire to level 2, which doesn't take long at all, probably one battle, and you can unlock this class. Key points: potion and elixir changes redefine healing and pacing. Abilities scale with player creativity. Strategic buffs and status effects. Slow start early, but becomes a very powerful support mid and late game. Can become costly early, more maintainable when you have more money. So the main changes to Chemist is that potions, one of the main changes, potions are no longer trash after, say, chapter 1. In vanilla, potions are pretty much your lifeblood. They're the way you heal, unless you have a priest. They only heal 30 HP. But once you roll into, say, chapter 2, mid-chapter 2, you want to switch over to high potions. And then once you get into, say, chapter 3, you want to switch over to X potion. That is not a thing in this mod. Potion does not restore 30 HP. Potion on this mod instead restores half of your maximum HP. That is one of the best changes to Chemist, because now potion is no longer trash after chapter 1. Potion is a huge improvement for sustain, and it is good from start to finish. Potion is good from the time you start the game until the time you face Ultima 2. It is that good. Especially because I do believe HP modifiers have been buffed for all classes as well. So all classes do have more HP than vanilla, which makes potion even better to use. So frontline units like heroes and knights and assassin, ninjas, they can all benefit from potion. Everything can benefit from potion. And that makes it useful all game. And it's very cheap. Potion is most likely the first ability you're going to learn on Chemist, if not already learned. All right, next up we have Chemical X and Chemical G, which replaces the High Potion and the X Potion. They're gone. No High Potions in this mod. No X Potions in this mod. They're gone. Instead, we get something called Chemical X and Chemical G. Now, this is where the RNG battlefield control comes into play, because Chemical X gives poison, slow, frog, death sentence, darkness, or oil, and the game picks one at random. Now, the only issue with these, and this is the reason why I say it's RNG battlefield control, because you can't control what you get from these things. The reason why I say it's RNG is because it only picks one out of those 6 negative status effects when you throw it. The problem with this is if that unit is immune to whatever the game picks, then you waste a turn. You simply waste a turn. So for example, if you throw a Chemical X on something that's immune to frog and it picks frog, that's a waste of turn. So you gotta, I can't say you gotta be careful with this, you just have to roll the dice. That's all it is to it. You throw one of these and you hope you get lucky. It's the same thing for Chemical G. Chemical G has the more potent status effects: Confuse, Berserk, Silence, Innocent, Sleep, or Charm. And again, just like Chemical X, it chooses one at random. So again, you want to cross your fingers and hope you get something good. But if you land something good, then hey, more power to you. Ether and high ether restore more MP, 50 and 100 versus 20 and 50. I feel this is a very good change as well. And like I said earlier, HP has been increased. HP modifiers, MP modifiers, and MP growths have increased as well. For most classes anyway. So most classes will end up with a decent amount of MP. The mage classes will end up with a lot of MP. So 50 MP high ethers aren't gonna cut it. So 100 MP is much more reasonable. I like that change. So ethers and high ethers are very worth using. All right, now we have the interesting elixirs, the lettered elixirs, P, M, S, R, and Z. Each of these elixirs will give you a different type of buff, whether it be protect from P, shell from M, haste from S, regen from R, or re-raise from Z. So each of these elixirs are they're interesting. They have their uses. The strongest elixirs here are most likely elixir S and elixir Z for haste and re-raise. So you can do something like you start a battle, you throw out elixir S on your DPS unit, get them up there and start swinging on stuff. Or you throw an elixir Z on a hero that's in critical HP. All of these elixirs are instant, by the way, so you can just use it. If you have throw item, which chemists have throw item innate, which I forgot to note that, but I'm sure you guys know that by now. Chemists have throw item innate. But yeah, these elixirs, they do have their uses. Elixirs P, M, and R are not as useful, but they can be useful still, because picture yourself in a situation where you're in a boss fight or you're in a fight and you have something lethal being charged onto you. And I don't mean lethal as in like double your max HP and damage. I'm talking about lethal as in maybe 20, 30, 40 HP over your max HP. This is when you come in and throw in something like an elixir M for shell, or you throw in elixir Z for re-raise if it's just gonna flat out kill him. You can save that unit. I think that happened to me during the Velius battle where I threw an elixir M on somebody, which allowed them to survive one of Velius' summons. I think that situation actually did happen. But elixir M is really useful in those sort of situations. Elixir P is a little harder to use. It's really one of those elixirs you just throw out and forget. Just give that unit protect. There's more, there's other options for protect. So yeah, Elixir P is probably one of the least useful, right along with Elixir R. Now Elixir R can probably be good to reverse poison effects. They can act like pseudo antidotes and get rid of poison, or they can just flat out just, you know, give the character regen. So, but yeah, Elixir S and Elixir Z are definitely the best ones out of the 5, but they all have their uses though. Speaking of elixirs, we have Elixir B. This is a reaction ability which restores HP and MP to full when triggered at critical HP. Very costly in chapter 1 and 2. Now, I'm going to say I don't really like this skill, and the reason why I don't like this skill is not because it's broken, because it's certainly not broken. The fact that Elixir B costs 3,500 gil to buy. That is insanely expensive, especially in chapter 1 where money is tight and you need that money to buy, you know, potions or Phoenix Downs, maybe some ethers if you're running mages or whatnot. You don't have time to be buying stuff like Elixir Bs because they're just too damn expensive. And even mid-game they can seem expensive. But once you get into late game, once you start amassing a good amount of money, if you're in game, if you're like doing deep dungeon or something, you have a ton of money by then yeah, go ahead and get some Elixir Beads. You can afford them then. But early game, chapter 1, chapter 2, don't mess with this because it's just, you're going to be sad. And the worst part about it is this only triggers when you're critical HP. So think HP restore, but it has a full MP tech attack attached to it. So it restores all your HP and all your MP only if you're critical. So yeah, I personally don't like this ability. I feel as though auto potion, well, no, I can't even say auto potion because auto potion would be broken on this mod. Now that I think about it, I would rather prefer something else here. Auto potion would be just too busted. Not with potion the way it is. So, but I don't really like Elixir B or that. I never used it. It's just too expensive. Cuts into your money too bad. Now, it's one thing if you find them on the battlefield. That's one thing, but yeah, it just becomes way too costly to keep that up. Last but not least is Stim Pack, which is a new ability, a new support ability that chemists can learn. Stim Pack is a very powerful support ability which gives you auto haste and auto regen. However, you cannot be affected by shell or protect. Now, you may think, oh, that's good, which it is. Stim Pack is a very good ability if used correctly. The fact that you can't be hit with protect or shell is not that big of a deal, really, especially since there are workarounds. A good combo is with the item Defense Armlet, which I think you win a Defense Armlet after you beat Isloot in Chapter 3. So basically the combo is Stim Pack and Defense Armlet. Stim Pack says you're auto hasted and auto regen, but you can't be hit with protect and shell. Defense Armlet says you have auto protect and auto shell, but you can't get affected by haste or regen. Now, what happens if you put the two together? What happens is you end up with all 4 abilities: auto haste, auto regen, auto shell, and auto protect. You get the benefits of all 4 of those, which is really nice. So now with this combo of Stim Pack and Defense Armlet, all of a sudden your unit is more tankier because of protect and shell, and regen. Your unit is also faster because of haste. Very good combo, especially on supports. Very good combo. So yeah, Chemist as a whole, insanely good in this mod. Insanely good. All right, let's move on to Archer. Archer has received a few changes for the better. They get charge command, of course. They are ranged DPS as a role, of course. That doesn't change. To unlock archers, you need a level 2 squire. Not that hard to do. Most likely, you will unlock archer in chapter 1. Early in chapter 1. They can equip bows and crossbows, and bags if female. So archers, they get innate secret hunt. So you use them if you want to poach things and get, loot, rare loot. Speaking of poaching, the first shop I believe opens in chapter 1 as well. So that is also a nice change. That's a quality of life change, honestly, but I'll get into those later. So yeah, secret hunt on Archer, first shop opens in chapter 1. Charge skills are capped at charge plus 5, so that means there's no charge plus 7, there's no charge plus 10, there's no charge plus 20. All those abilities are gone. And that brings me to the best change to Archer, and that is the fact that short charge works with charge. This by itself is a huge improvement to Archer. Normally on vanilla, short charge does not work with charge skill set. On this mod, it does. Now, personally, I didn't use short charge with Archers, probably because I didn't know that until late in the run. but I really didn't use archers all that much anyway, aside from poaching. I didn't really use them for damage purposes. But yeah, that's a neat little thing that you can play with, is the fact that short charge works with charge. New support ability called Free Ranger grants immunity to Don't Move and Don't Act. And they also have Caution from Thief and Tame Beast, which is Train. So I want to touch upon Train for a second. Those of you who know what Train does is basically if you get a target in the critical and you have Train equipped, then that target is now invited. Speaking of inviting, you cannot invite humans in this mod because mediators are gone, invitation is gone, so you cannot invite humans. This only works on monsters. And I'll get into that in a minute. Free Ranger, basically, you know, don't move, don't act protection. That's nice. It makes the archer or whoever has this ability equipped, makes them harder to pin down. They can still get hit with, you know, petrify and sleep, so they can still be pinned down, but it's just harder to pin them down. Short charge, as I said, is a huge buff for charge as a whole. You get more reliable damage, you get quicker damage because you know how short charge works. Harder to lock down, and Free Ranger is equipped, as I just mentioned. Archers feel cleaner, faster, and more reliable in this mod than in vanilla. And as I just mentioned, if you're trying to tame monsters in the purpose of breeding them, that doesn't work. So breeding is no longer possible, so Secret Hunt gets a little bit less value if you're using it for that specific purpose. So you can't do something like, you know, tame a Eurobow and then walk around the world map to get a wild bow and then poach it for a ribbon. Doesn't work. Breeding is not a thing. So the only reason you would want to tame a monster is to keep it. That's literally it. Or poach it. And there are a couple of battles that have wild bows. I did mention this during the playthrough. Grog Hill East in chapter 4 is one of them. You can possibly get a wild bow there, so if you want to, you can get ribbons. So yeah, Archer, pretty solid class, much better than it is in vanilla for sure. Not much else to say about that. All right, moving on to the Knight. We have battle skill as its command, of course. That doesn't change from vanilla. Their role is DPS. And battlefield control. Knight's skill set has changed completely. Unlocking requirements is level 2 Squire. They can equip one-handed swords, knight swords, and flails. Keep in mind, they cannot equip axes on this mod. I think that was taken from them. They can equip axes in vanilla, I believe. I think. But they can't on this mod. And I also forgot bags if they're female, but that should be obvious by now. Alright, so what did Bad Frog change about Knights? Well, first of all, equipment breaking removed entirely. It is not in the mod. So, weapon break, shield break, armor break, head break, gone. Gone. No equipment breaking. And yeah, you can assume that Meliador's skill set has changed too. So, equipment breaking is gone. New damage plus control skills. They have hamstring, damage plus slow, disrupt, damage plus cancels charging, dismantle, damage plus removes positive status effects, and overpower, which is damage plus don't act. These skills are extremely useful because it allows the knight to play as a pseudo status inflictor. Slow is one of the most crippling abilities there is. You can also, remove positive status effects if you need to. Don't act from overpowered. Now keep in mind, overpowered does have a charge time. And disrupt deserves a special mention because disrupt is actually really good against Zodiac bosses. When they start charging stuff on you and you have a unit with disrupt and they get a turn before that spell goes off, then they just won't get that spell off. It is what it is, you know. Disrupt also is good against mage units that are charging on you, or you know, enemy priests if they're trying to revive or they're trying to heal or something. Disrupt just says no, and it does damage too. Knight now controls tempo instead of destroying gear, as I just mentioned. Skill set is good for Zodiac bosses, just mentioned that. Reliable frontline control without RNG frustration. Skill effects are 100%. So yeah, Knights are basically a simple, sturdy battlefield controller with DPS options. So Knight, really good in this mod. You don't have to worry about breaking weapons and all that good stuff there. What you want to do with the Knight is just send them on up there, whack stuff. If you see something that's charging, you disrupt it. If you see a target with haste, you can slow it, or just slow it because, you know. If you see a target with re-raise, use dismantle. Or if you just straight up want to, you know, disable a unit, you just overpower, which can don't act them. So Knights, I feel, are a pretty strong class in this mod. I like them. All right, next up we have the Monk. Monk changes, not too many. However, Monk now has access to Blade Grasp. Now, I do want to touch upon this because Blade Grasp in Vanilla is unlocked when you unlock Samurai, and when you learn the ability. I think Blade Grasp on Vanilla is it 700 JP, something like that. It's pretty expensive. On this mod, Blade Grasp is on Monk, which requires 3 levels in Archer to unlock, which is not that hard to do, and it's 250. On top of that, they have access to Brave Up. So first of all, Monk's skills all depend on Brave. They have early access to Brave manipulation, well, self-Brave manipulation pretty much. And this allows them to do high damage early on. As I said, Monk is not difficult to unlock. Blade Grasp accessible as early as like mid chapter 1, in addition to the point above, can trivialize fights. And I think I did touch upon this earlier, where you have access to Embolden. You can start raising your team's Brave right from the get-go. And once you unlock Monk and you learn Blade Grasp, chapter 1 is easy peasy. There's a lot of physical units in chapter 1, chapter 2 as well. And when you're running around with like 80, 90 Brave and Blade Grasp, then not a lot is going to stop you. And those of you who played FFT, you know how strong Blade Grasp is as an ability. You can unlock Blade Grasp much earlier in this mod. Monks are extremely strong all game long, as you may imagine. Males offensively strong all game long. Females defensively, I should have put late game defensively, but that's okay. Females have extremely powerful defensive options, stim pack plus defense armlet plus hair ornament, making them fast, tanky supports with DPS options mid to late game. So female monks, yeah, they can do damage, but as I just mentioned, they have various defensive options available to them. They get hair ornaments, of course, you know, barrettes, cachuchas, ribbons. And if you run stim pack and defense armlet, I talked about stim pack and defense armlet when I covered chemist. Now all of a sudden you have one of the strongest support units in the game. One of the strongest. They're tanky. They're hard to kill, especially if you slap a ribbon on her. They can't be statused. They have auto protecting shells, so yeah, like I said, they're tanky. They're fast because they have haste. They will constantly recover health. So it's a really strong support unit. And you can just run a female monk with, say, chakra and stigma magic and revive. They don't even need to be up in the front line. They can just sit back and be an MP battery for your mages, or they can recover HP when they need to. They can restore status if they need to. They can revive if they need to. They can do all sorts of stuff. And yeah, you can do this sort of thing on the vanilla game, but this mod makes it easier to do. Again, this mod gives you many more options as to how you want to play the game. All right, moving on, we have the Thief. Oh boy, thieves. Let me talk about thieves. All right. Steel Command, as you may imagine, of course. Thieves are supportive DPS, utility, and control. To unlock them, you need a level 2 Squire, which, again, easy to unlock. Key points: excels at treasure acquisition with jackpot ability. I will touch upon jackpot in just a moment. They are evasive units that can control with Steel Heart, of course. Steel Heart is Steel and Flex Charm. They have access to multiple status immunities, Sleep Slow, Charm, Confuse. And they can perform normal attacks for bonus skill. So that means basically I'm saying they have built-in guild taking. Guild taking as an ability itself is gone. But you can trigger guild taking by just smacking something with a thief. That's how you get guild taking. Another ability that's gone is Steel Experience, and I'll mention that later on too. But yeah, Steel Experience is gone. The other Steel skills are there, of course. Now I want to get to Jackpot, because Jackpot is probably one of the most interesting abilities in the mod. Jackpot says enemies you kill become treasure boxes. This counters undead, as you can imagine, and re-raise units. Allows you to acquire more precious items late game. Now, Jackpot, I found, is a little bit buggy. And I think the one instance I've seen Jackpot be buggy is when I went through Goland and I tried to kill that last thief and she just wouldn't turn into a treasure chest. At least not on the first attempt anyway. So yeah, Jackpot is extremely strong, because it's extremely strong late game too, because you can use it to acquire, and this is the way to acquire more precious items, by the way, is if you've been watching my playthrough through Deep Dungeon, you notice that I was using Jackpot on mobs after stealing from them. Because you can't steal precious items, this is the only way to acquire them. Now, of course, if they have more than one precious item, then you have to rely on the RNG to get that item. If you don't get it, then too bad, you get something else. But Jackpot, I feel it can also work against you, I believe, because if you end up in a situation where the unit you have with Jackpot equipped becomes charmed or confused, and then that unit ends up killing one of your teammates, they're gone. They're gone from the game, and you will most likely want to reset. I'm not sure if this works on Ramza. I haven't really tried. I haven't really seen it, but if it does, then you kind of have to be very careful with this ability, because like I said, you can end up in a situation where your unit with Jackpot gets charmed and they're a really high damage unit. Let's say you run Jackpot on a ninja, for example, with a bunch of speed, and that ninja gets charmed. and ends up swinging at your own teammates, and then they end up turning into a treasure box. So you kind of have to be a little bit careful with Jackpot. Also, another thing I found out with Jackpot is you do not want to use Jackpot with AoE abilities. I found this out the hard way. So what happens is like don't use it with, say, like a summoner. Please don't use it with a summoner, because if you charge something on a group of enemies and they're all, let's say they have low HP, and the summoner gets like a multi-kill, and that summoner has Jackpot equipped, what ends up happening is they will all turn into treasure boxes, but the game will freeze. The game will just soft lock. So that's why you don't want to use Jackpot with AoE abilities. You'll end up getting soft locked. So it's a fun ability, but it's a little buggy and it's a little bit dangerous to work with. So just take that as a precaution. Thieves also get evasion up, which is abandon, makes thief extremely evasive. As you would imagine, abandon is the same here as it is in vanilla. Energetic is a new passive, gives sleep and slow immunity, and this can hard counter units using hamstring. Yeah, so energetic basically says you can't put me to sleep, you can't slow me. So this is useful against like enemy knights, because enemy knights, they love using hamstring. I found out they love hamstring. And if you have energetic on, they can't do that ability. I mean, they can, but the slow won't affect you. Street Smarts is also a new passive that thieves have. This gives you immunity to confuse and charm. It hard counters enemy thieves, of course. Maybe mind flayers, because they have, or what's that ability? Brain something, I forgot what it was, but the one that confuses and berserks you, it counters them too. It counters the confusion part, it doesn't counter the berserk part. And as I mentioned, they lose guild taking. They're built into their normal attacks. Steal experience is gone. This also means you cannot utilize level manipulation strats on this mod, because steal experience is gone, so you can't keep a unit's level low like that. Thieves can also equip one-handed swords as well as guns, which is an interesting choice for more weapon options other than daggers. So you can have a thief wield a gun, attack from 8 range. Now, guild taking passive does not work with guns. I figured that out the hard way. I tried to use it with a gun and it doesn't work. So you have, in order to proc that guild taking passive, you have to have a dagger or a one-handed sword. They have to be melee. I mean, which makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense when you steal guild from 8 panels away. You know, that doesn't make sense at all. They can acquire more powerful gear earlier if you know what random battles to look for. This is a vanilla thing as well. So it's like you do a bunch of random battles and you have thieves. You look for gear. You can get more powerful gear earlier in the game. The same is true in this mod as well. All right, moving on. We are up to Priest now. Okay, so Priest did not receive that many changes. Basically, the only significant change that Priest got was the ability to use carpets. They also got regen on top of Curaja, which is Cure 4. So that heals and inflicts regen as well. And they gained Preach, which is a mediator skill for faith increasing objects. So not only can Priest heal, they do what they do in vanilla. They can also raise your faith now, which is nice. So yeah, they play just like a regular priest would in vanilla. Holy, of course, is still strong, so nothing new there. Carpets is an interesting option on Priest because it allows you to run an evade setup with them. Carpets on this mod have innate weapon guard, or parry, as it's called in this mod. So if you give them something like a carpet, a mantle, and evasion up, then all of a sudden your priest is very hard to hit. Of course, when she's not charging, but if they are charging, then all the evasion goes out the window. But if they're not charging, then yeah, evasion setups are pretty decent on them. It makes them hard to hit. They are squishy, so it's a thing you can do. And this is one of the things that the mod gives you options for. All right, next up is the Wizzy. Black magic, of course. Wizards, again, just like priests, they didn't receive too many changes. I do believe that they are the only class that can use rods. I think. I could be wrong on that, but I haven't seen any other class that can use rods other than maybe like Rafa and Malak, maybe. I'm not sure, but anywho, Wizards lost both the death spell and the poison spell. That's whatever, honestly. Death you can find on Biblos now. Poison has just flat out been removed. They also get a new reaction called Hex, which inflicts fog on an attacker when critical. They also gained the any weather ability, and their other skills have not changed. So Hex is a weird reaction ability because I feel as though Hex is strong on paper, but it's one of those reaction abilities that just falls off a cliff. They're decent. It's decent early, but when the enemies start bringing stuff like wizard hats, which gives you immunity to fog, cachuchas or ribbons, or if it's just an immortal unit that can't be fogged in the first place, or if it's a boss unit which obviously can't be fogged, then Hex is quite pointless. It's also an ability that can only be triggered when the unit hits critical. So I feel as though Hex kind of misses the mark here. I kind of understand the concept of Hex, but in reality, it's just not a good ability. Like I said, early on, maybe chapter 1, if you unlock Hex, or chapter 2, it's decent. What also hurts Hex is the fact that all status effects are temporary on this mod, so fog does not last forever. So if you can't deal with that unit, then they're going to revert back to their original form. So that also hurts Hex. But yeah, I feel as though Hex is kind of a iffy reaction ability. I don't particularly care for it. All right, moving on, we have the Astrologian, aka the Time Mage. Basically the same. Only changes to Time Mages is the fact that they can get motivation, which is speed save, and the fact that Demi and Demigod can inflict random negative status effects, which is pretty cool. I like that. Also, Demi and Demigod, and I forgot to put this here, but Demi and Demigod, or Demigod's Demi too, so in case for those who want to know. Demi and Demigod do not do fractional damage in this mod, so you can't use it on Zodiac bosses. You can, but it doesn't do fractional damage. That's what I'm trying to say. Demi is more of a chance spell where you want to see what status you can get. So plays exactly like vanilla Time Mage, so no real other changes other than the Demigod and motivation. Motivation is probably better on ninjas rather than Time Mages. I mean, don't get me wrong, motivation is okay on mages. You don't want your mage with a bunch of speed anyway, but It's more useful, I feel, on time mages. I'm sorry, on ninjas rather, not time mages. Um, Ninjas can make much better use out of the motivation reaction ability. Still one of the best tempo control jobs. Of course, time mages have good control abilities like slow and stop and don't move. They also have stuff like reflect and meteor. All that stuff is still there. Haste and slow are still extremely powerful as you would imagine them to be. Quick is still quick. Quick does quick things. Quick has not been changed. Still full range. Still does what it does. Although it does allow crazy strats with Scorpion Jutsu, and I'll get into that once I start covering Ninja. But yeah, other than that, Time Mage is still Time Mage under a different name. All right, next up we have the Wu, which is the Oracle. So Oracles did receive a couple of decent changes. They are still the masters of support control and brave faith manipulation. So again, Oracle skill set has not changed at all. They've been renamed, but they haven't changed. They do get a couple of new things like Panacea, which is basically Dragon Spirit on top of a bunch of buffs. Well, a better example would be Alma's Magic Barrier, which gives you haste, protect, shell, regen, and re-raise. And it cleanses negative status. But you have to be critical for it to trigger. So there is that. They also get Balanced Mind as a new support ability, which is basically immunity to Berserk and Silence. So that's nice as well. It's basically a free magic ring. It's nice. Nice to have on mages. They also get Lecture, which is basically the solution ability from Mediators. And that allows the Oracle to lower a target's faith. So you can use, I think this is the only way you can lower faith, by the way, in this mod, is if you use Lecture. So those of you who want, 97 brave, 3 faith units, this is the way to do it. Oracle, as I said, still one of the most powerful control jobs. Plays exactly like vanilla Oracle. Now, since status effects are all temporary on this mod, this kind of indirectly nerfs Oracle, because now status effects such as Petrify and Silence and Zombie are less effective. They're less effective because they don't last forever. Petrify does not last forever. Eventually, these status effects will be removed. So you kind of have to keep that in mind when you play as an Oracle. Oracle is also still one of the best boss killers with Invigoration, which is basically the life drain spell. You've seen that during the playthrough. Another thing about Woos is the fact that they can use carpets as well. So again, I mentioned carpets when I covered Priest. Carpets give you innate weapon guard. Poles also have a lot of evasion on them, so you can run parry with poles and give 40% weapon evade from the front. You can also run mantles and evasion up. So oracles can get similar evade setups just like the priest can. All right, moving on, we have the summoner. I know this is a little bit long, but bear with me. Summoner I feel is Summoner still good. It's just they have had some interesting changes to them. Fairy gives regen just like Cure 4 does, or Curaja rather. And that's one of the changes. Another change to Summoner is that Lich no longer deals fractional damage just like Demi. It does dark damage and adds sleep and death sentence. Now the sleep and death sentence, if the target is not immune, it is going to hit. It's 100%. So Lich is one of the most reliable ways to inflict sleep, but you inflict damage in the process. So there is that option. But the most interesting change to Summoner is the fact that they can no longer use rods. Now, I feel as though this is a weird change because now, without rods, Summoner early game is weaker. You don't have the option to use, Flame Rod, Ice Rod, Thunder Rod to boost Ifrit, Shiva, Ramu, for example. Yeah, so Summoner was indirectly nerfed because of that. So now they have to just twiddle their thumbs and not have any way to boost their stuff because Summoner weapon options are actually trash until Chapter 3. Staves and carpets, that's all they can use. And if they're female, they can use bags, of course. But since they don't have rods, all they have are staves, which are garbage early on. Staves, basically, you don't have many options to have until Chapter 3. Excuse me. All right, I'm back. Yeah, so I feel as though Summoner's definitely been nerfed early game. Now, once those options appear in Chapter 3, once they have access to stuff like Wizard Staff and Spirit Gems, then their ability to do more damage opens up. But before then, Summoners, they don't have many options. All right, sorry about that. I'm trying to do like 3 things at once here. But yeah, I feel as though taking VODs from them was a weird design decision, but it is what it is, I guess. Yeah, so they also have cheaper reaction abilities as well, so there is that. Move MP up is cheaper. Counter magic is cheaper. They also get access to stuff like Focus, which is MA save, so that's nice as well. All right, anywho, let's move on. I need to get through this now. All right, Geomancers, which are Shaman in this mod, they play exactly the same. Now, the big change to Geomancers on this mod is the fact that Elemental has a massively increased AoE. So I think it's like AoE 4 or 3, something like that. It's pretty huge. The skills themselves have not changed. Level 3 monk requirement, that's a thing. They also get a new support called Earth Spirit, which basically boosts the elemental skill set. Now keep in mind, this does not mean elemental skills as a whole, but the elemental skill set. It also gives them immunity to petrify. They also get a new reaction called Stone Form, which is HP restore basically, and self petrify on critical. I feel as though, I mean, the mod maker really wants you to use this together, Stone Form plus Earth Spirit, but I feel as though it's very niche and impractical because you don't really need Stone Form because it self-petrifies. You don't really want that. Earth Spirit is nice by itself, but Earth Spirit with Stone Form, it's whatever. They also got their base PA and MA lowered as well, so it's harder to pull off like combos you would use in vanilla, such as draw out Geomancers or something like that, because of their lowered MA and PA. Elemental is very powerful as a secondary to Dragon of Reese, as you've seen during the playthrough. Reese is a monster with elemental. Reaper support is probably best in slot for this class and greatly benefits elemental. Yeah, I think Reaper is probably best in slot here. Earth Spirit is nice, don't get me wrong, but Reaper is probably better for longer battles for them. All right, next up we have the Ninja. Of course, throw command. To unlock ninjas, you need level 3 assassin. Their rolls, speed-based DPS, of course. Ninjas actually are very deadly units in this mod. They can snowball extremely quickly with speed boosting abilities. They can manipulate turn order with Scorpion Jutsu. They also are the only units that can dual wield. So there is no two swords ability in this mod. If you want to dual wield, you need to run a ninja. It's plain and simple. No other options. You have to run ninja if you want to dual wield in this mod. Skill specific points. The weapon changes. They lost the ability to throw weapons, so no throw axe, no throwing slashers, no throwing like loom blades or anything like that. That's gone. The only things ninjas can throw on this mod are shuriken and elemental balls. That's it. Ninja weapons scale off of speed and strictly speed. PA/MA growth reduced greatly, making their secondary skill options much more limited. So I feel as though ninjas, this isn't really a nerf to them though. This is really kind of forcing them to run speed setups. Since ninja's PA is so low, you can't do stuff like punch art ninja. It just doesn't work. What else? Ninjas with, say, charge, or ninjas with battle skill. It just doesn't work. They don't have the PA. I feel as though their best in slot for secondaries is probably item, or maybe I don't know, like, can't say magic because their MA is low. Probably just item, actually. I think item is just their best secondary. Yeah, so like I said, they don't have many options as far as secondaries, and make them good anyway. Scorpion Jutsu is a reaction ability that they can get. Triggers quick when taking physical damage, can enable turn loops, and infinite quick strats. This is one of the most powerful reaction abilities rather, in the mod. Extremely strong. You can do a lot of stuff with Scorpion Jutsu. Ninjas can make use of this, of course. You can use Scorpion Jutsu on practically anyone, and it'll work just fine. Mages, fighters, supports, they can all use this, because who doesn't like extra turns? Killing Spree is a support which is similar to Reaper. Instead of giving PA and MA, this gives speed after every kill. +2 speed after every kill. Best in slot for ninjas themselves and other physical units. So yeah, Killing Spree allows the ninja to just snowball. Especially since ninja weapons scale strictly off of speed. Killing Spree is also good on, like heroes or knights or assassins, thieves. But they're really best on ninjas themselves. They also get immunity as a new passive, makes them immune to poison and fog. It hard counters enemy units with toxicology and or hex. Also easy to master. You only need 1600 JP to get all the abilities. So yeah, another thing that just craps on hex is immunity. So that's another reason why hex is bad. It also counters units with toxicology, because with immunity you don't get poison. So yeah, ninjas, one of the strongest classes in the mod. All right, next up we have Lancers. They've received a few changes. They don't have the vertical jump skills anymore. Instead, they get range +1 skills. There are a total of 5 of them. And they also lose ignore height. They gain jump +2, and their base jump was increased from 4 to 5. So you put on a jump +2 and maybe Drumina's boost, and now your Lancer has a jump of 8. So they can scale pretty much anything, almost anything. But other than that, Lancer is practically the same. But the biggest change for Lancer is the fact that you can plan your jump attacks because you can see when the jump will land. Just like you can see the CT resolution of any spells you're trying to cast, you can see that with jump as well, which is a nice change. I like that. Also, Lancers can use robes. So if you want to play a Lancer with white magic, you can. You can play Lancer with time magic, you can do it. You have robe options now. They are also very powerful units if equipped with attack up. You give them a good spear, and they can pretty much 1-2 shot stuff. Also, Lancers are very good users of motivation because more speed on Lancers means faster jumps. Scorpion Jutsu is also good on them as well. They can also use one-handed swords should Lancer be unlocked in mid-chapter 1 for more damage options. So no more, if you unlock Lancer in chapter 1, no more having, bare hands because you can't buy spears yet. You can equip a one-handed sword and at least swing with it. You don't get the bonus jump damage with them, but you can't have it all, I guess. So yeah, Lancers are very powerful units in this mod as well. Samurai, draw out, of course. They also have not been changed too much. They did lose Blade Grasp, that's on Monk now, and they gained Hamedo. So there is that. They get innate 2 hands as well. Katana DPS skills have been buffed. The only really noticeable change on Katana skills is Kutetsu, which can inflict don't move or don't act. Everything else is pretty much the same. They play exactly like vanilla Samurai. And they can also use longbows as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, longbows on Samurais. One thing I did notice is the fact that, and I think this is a bug, but if you put Draw Out as a secondary ability, it is grayed out. I don't know why that is. Even when you have katanas and even when you have the abilities learned, the skill set is grayed out. So until this is fixed, if you want to run Draw Out, you have to run Samurai. So I don't know why that is, but I'm pretty sure it's a bug though. All right, so now we get to the quality of life and features. I'm gonna try to cover this as quick as I can. Random battles have been removed entirely, keeping the pacing tight. And now I'm reading off my notes that I wrote down. The roster size has been expanded to 20 units, allowing for more experimentation. Several conveniences are now innate to all player units. Gain JP up. Equip change, that was the one I was missing, was equip change. And then move find item. All 3 of those abilities are innate to all units. Move find item, gain JP up, and equip change. And then there's smaller changes like compatibility highlighting that was seen in Lion War Remixed. Cleaned up text, different dialogue, different spell quotes. So all of that is really nice. Really nice quality of life changes for this mod. Now I get to the final verdict. Basically, this mod is fun to play. It brings a strong presentation. It does what it set out to do. You get early access to powerful reactions. I also like that as well. But for those of you who are looking for a challenge, you may want to try to limit yourself because, like I said earlier, you have access to Brave manipulation in chapter 1. You have access to Blade Grasp in chapter 1. So there is that you have to consider. And if you want a challenge, you don't want to be messing with that. One thing that I can't say I didn't like, but it's more of a small gripe, and a lot of mods do this, so I'm not picking on this mod, and I'm not singling out this mod, but Zodiac bosses are not immune to percentage damage. Now, they did get an HP buff, but that doesn't matter if they are still vulnerable to percentage damage. Doesn't matter. I would love to play more mods where they are immune to percentage damage. A good example is Cerebos mod, where the bosses there force you to fight them, because you cannot hit them with stuff like Life Drain or Beowulf's Drain Sword skill, Demi, Lich, stuff like that. Can't do that. Another thing I noticed is the special characters were mostly unchanged. I think the two special characters that were mostly changed were Meliador, because equipment breaking's gone, and Mustadia. So those were the two main changes to special characters. Cloud lost a couple of abilities. Reese is still practically the same, if not stronger. Beowulf is practically the same. Worker rate's practically the same. So yeah, not much changes to special characters. Deep dungeon battles could be stronger. I understand. I like the attempt. A lot of these deep dungeon battles, they had good setups, but it left me wanting more. Let's just put it that way. Not a negative against the mod, but it just left me wanting. A deep dungeon just left me wanting more. Overall, I think I can say that I think I want to just give this mod a score of 8.5 out of 10. And that's a solid score. A very good job. Again, it's a rebalanced mod, but it does have its balance issues. If you're playing for difficulty, you're not going to find it here. This is a mod that's straightforward. It gets the point across. It's more for casuals than, difficulty seekers. I mean, if you want difficult mods, you play something like 1.3. You won't find that much difficulty here. There are a few design choices I wish were handled a bit differently, but other than that, I really had a fun time with this mod. I enjoyed this mod. The presentation is pretty strong, and I had a lot of fun playing through it. Some reaction abilities are extremely powerful, like Scorpion Jutsu, like Blade Grasp. Zodiac bosses not immune to percentage damage is something that gives me a gripe. But I mean, none of these are like deal breakers or anything like that. The mod's strengths easily outweigh these minor issues. So yeah, solid 8.5 out of 10. Congratulations. This is a well polished mod for the most part. I enjoyed it. If you guys enjoyed my playthrough, thank you for watching. I will leave a description below if you want to try out this mod for yourself. But yeah, that is my review. That's gonna do it for the review of the Final Fantasy Tactics Zodiac Brave Story mod. I know this was a long video. I think we're over 2 hours. Holy moly. Yeah, I didn't mean to go that long, but anywho, I had to say a lot of stuff about this mod. So yeah, so those of you who enjoyed the review, feel free to leave a comment. If you didn't enjoy the review, feel free to leave a comment anyway. But yeah, very nice job, Batfog. If you're watching this video, you did a wonderful job on this mod. I can't say that enough. I had plenty of fun with it. I had a good time. It was a pleasant experience. So with that said, I'm going to leave it here, and I will see you guys next time.